What's up, everybody? You're tuned in to episode 11 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games' weekly podcast about Valve's hot new handheld, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete Messi, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. Welcome back. The music's back. Hope everybody dug it. If it's too loud, let me know, because this is the first week with this. So I got a brand new setup on the Stream Deck, so we can keep the tune.
It seemed great on the Flip Screen Games podcast, so I'm sure you did a great job.
There you go. As well. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. How you doing this week, buddy?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm having a good time. I've not really played many games this week. I've more been like faffing around, hacking with little bits and pieces for some new videos, which I'm putting together. So
yeah, you've been spending a lot of time tinkering.
Yeah. So I've been playing with alternative launchers this week. So I'll be doing a video comparing some of those at some point. In fact, I may end up just doing one on Heroic because that's my favorite. So but finding some bits and pieces out about it, like VSync doesn't work with it out of the box, so we found a workaround, which is good.
Very nice. While we're on the subject of the tutorials, I would love to take the opportunity to extend a big thank you to all the new subscribers, all the new listeners to the show. We officially passed 500 subscribers on our YouTube channel this past week. That is us doubling the number of people who are subscribed to the channel in just a month. The vast majority of you coming through for the Steam Deck content. So thank you so much to all the new blood. Thank you to all the new folks who've come and shown their support and gotten behind what we're doing here. And I'm glad you're enjoying the show and the tutorials and all that good stuff. So thank you, big thank you to everybody who has come and joined us here and become a member of the community. And a big thank you to all the folks who have come and join the Discord and been chatting with us over there and everything. It's been really great. It's been great to have some new blood and everything. So thank you all for coming and hanging out with us. We really appreciate you. Now this is the part where you say something nice, Steve. No?
Sorry, I thought you were going to go straight into the bit about the Patreon producers, but it's all good.
It's like when I don't throw to you, you step all over me. When I do, you just leave me hanging.
I'm sure we'll have some sandwich talk anyway. Don't worry about it.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so before we get into that sandwich talk, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of October. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You are the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Remember, if you want to go and become a Patreon producer, get your name read on the air, or write in with suggestions, all that kind of good stuff. Tons of good perks. Patreon's the way to get them. But if you don't have any money for us, flipscreen.games is our website where you can find links to all the ways you can get involved that won't cost you a pretty penny, like joining our Discord, writing into the show, all kinds of good stuff. However you choose to get involved, we thank you for tuning into this week's show. I will say, before we get into the nitty-gritty here, I did want to just take the opportunity to say that next week we will be having a very special guest on the show. Friend of the show, Max Wright, will be joining and filling in for me while I am away on my honeymoon. And Max, of course, just got his Steam Deck a little bit ago, so I'm very excited to hear his thoughts. He's a huge Metroidvania fan, plays a lot of those real dorky games that Steve and I don't get around to, so it'll be a good time.
He's been playing some stuff I wanna pick his brains about. I know he's recommended the Prime Hack version of the Dolphin emulator, so I want to talk to him about that. And I think we're going to talk about some of the stuff that he wishes the Steam Deck had, where we'd like to see it go from here, that kind of thing, with his impressions. I know we've spoken about that till we're kind of blue in the face about we'd like X, Y, and Z. But I'm always interested to hear from someone new, someone who's just recently got their Steam Deck, is probably still in that honeymoon period with it.
Sure. So yeah, if you want to share your own thoughts on any of that stuff, make sure you write in for next week's show. So let's kick things off. We've got a follow-up from last week's show. Since last week, we talked all about kind of our initial impressions of the Steam Deck docking station, our first week or so with it in our hands. Since then, we have dropped our official full review of the dock over on YouTube, and y'all have been great about showing up for that as well. If you haven't checked it out already and you want to know, if the dock is worth picking up, that's, I think, the best way to go for it. But there was a little bit of news that broke after the last episode from the official On Deck account that we did want to just call out. So I'll just read their statement. Hi all, a quick update on the Steam Deck docking station. Thanks to reports from the community, we've discovered cases where MST and FreeSync functionality still require work. The team is actively working on these bugs and will be shipping software and firmware updates soon.
Yeah, they've also updated some bits on their website as well. So previously, none of this was listed in the technical specification, but they've updated that about the dock and there's a couple of caveats added there about MST requires both HDMI and display ports to be in use. I think some people thought that you could daisy chain display ports, which is what we wrongly assumed with MST support. And FreeSync support is in progress and there's an update forthcoming. They've also since added a note about a compatibility bug with some displays. So some LG displays, when the docking station is connected via HDMI, a sleep-wake results in visual noise. I've seen this. It comes up and it looks like your GPU's just broken. It's like green and like it's really scary looking. But don't worry about it. All you need to do is turn your Steam Deck off, like sleep your Steam Deck and wake it up again. If that doesn't solve it, just unplug the dock back in. They're working on a fix for it, so a fix will be out for that. I think it's a SteamOS issue rather than a actual docking station issue, but in any case they are working on it. But it was scary when I saw it. I thought, oh great, here we go, I've had like the worst month when it comes to luck, and now my Steam Deck breaks. I was not very happy.
Yeah, that's that would be scary. That's for sure. So I'm glad that they've identified the problem and they're working on it already. So yeah, eyes peeled for that. But if you want to hear more thoughts about the dock, go check out the full review if you haven't already. That's the best way for you to get our more detailed thoughts. If you still need more Steam Deck talk, Steam Deck docking station talk from last week's show.
Yeah. You're taking it with you on your honeymoon, right? That was one of the things you called out in the review, is that it's going to be great for travel.
Yeah, I'm not going to bring my Switch. I decided I'm going to just bring my Steam Deck and the docking station, and I'm going to see how I get on with that as like my only gaming solution. And I'm also going to see about using it as like a multimedia setup, depending on what my hotel room has, because I'm not totally sure what the situation's going to be there. But there's like a couple instances of like there's going to be some basketball games on while I'm away, and I'm going to be like, does this work? Like, is this actually like a viable solution for this? I don't know. We'll find out. I'll report back.
And what games are you going to be playing then? I'm presuming you've loaded it up with some stuff. Is it mainly emulation?
I have. No. I picked up some new games. I grabbed Outer Worlds on sale. Was on sale for $20. A game I've been meaning to replay, and apparently it runs very well on Steam Deck, so I grabbed that. I feel like there was another game I picked up at the same time that's escaping me right now, but I've also got Red Dead Redemption 2 in my cart. A member of the community.
Price.
I believe it was it Jamie? Or
no, JLA.
JLA, yeah, was asking us about whether or not that $30 price point was a good price point. I've never seen it lower than that, and I'm like, well, it sure would be nice to pick that up on Steam Deck, and it just got a patch that apparently makes it run well. So I'm thinking about it.
See, I'm looking at the Uncharted stuff at the moment, because that's one of the first games I've seen that is Steam Deck compatible, or at least like got the nice green tick from Valve, that supports AMD's FSR 2.0. And I really want to see the comparison between FSR 1 and FSR 2. FSR 2 is more like their DLSS take. I don't think it uses deep learning, but it recreates scenes rather than just like is a sharpening filter essentially. So I think I'm gonna pick that.
That'd be
up
cool.
At some point next
be
week.
Nice to get you to maybe do a little video breakdown on how that works. But the other thing is Persona 5 drops tomorrow, and I think I'm gonna pick that up because we announced it on the other shows. We're doing a new monthly show starting in November where we're going to be doing a game club along with Persona 5 Royal. And the goal will be to kind of get to a new palace by like every episode. So I'm thinking maybe I pick that up and I start that up on the plane and, kind of try to make a dent in that while I'm away. So we'll see. I've got a couple things that I'm going to bring just so that I can kind of play what I'm in the mood for, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. And if you don't play anything, you don't play anything. But I would imagine the plane ride's probably pretty long, so you're gonna want something to do
Yeah, I
it.
think it's at least 3 hours. It might be 4. So I'm going to have at least 6 to 8 hours on a plane to kill, even if I don't touch it the entire time I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
And I feel like I probably will have opportunities because generally speaking, I'm more of a night owl than Sarah is, and I don't sleep quite as much as she does. So I think there's probably a good chance that we'll have evenings where, she turns in and I'm up for an hour or two, like chilling while I cool off. So, yeah, so I got a couple things to chip away at. I'll definitely report back and let y'all know how my week goes, where it's the only thing I can game on. Because I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to prove to be a good solution, honestly, because I just have such a wide bench of games on that right now, and a couple games I'm in the middle of too. So like if I do want to just dip in and out of stuff, I'll have plenty to play with.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's the best thing I think about the Steam Deck is that you've got that wide variety that you can pick from. You can play the AAAs like Red Dead Redemption 2 if you want to, but there's also like the tiny little indie games like Vampire Survivors, or you can emulate something, or if you want to, then you can use it as like a media hub, which I'm interested to hear about.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll definitely talk more about that when I'm back 2 weeks from now, I guess it is, but. Yeah, I'll definitely let you know. But that actually takes us into a great question from the question block. We got a couple this week. John wrote in over on the Discord and said, any tips about some Steam games for a newbie? Vampire Survivor does look like a chill game.
Yeah, it's not chill at all.
Not chill, but a fun one.
Yeah, I think they were taking the piss a little bit, but it's a phenomenal game. I think everyone should pick up Vampire Survivors. It's so cheap, it's well worth your money. If you want another goofy game like that, was that like Trombone Expert game that everyone's playing at the moment?
Is it like Trombone Hero or something, right? Like
yeah,
it's like
something like that. It's
yeah.
like a trombone version of Guitar Hero, which is good fun. I would say, because I spoke to you, and I know you're going to be emulating Wind Waker. Like, and RPGs are more your bag. There's not really, I don't think, many PC exclusive RPGs, but just have a look at some that you missed and just pick them up, because they're probably going to run really, really well if you missed a bunch on like last gen consoles. They're gonna run fine on Steam Deck.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think, like, you have options of stuff, like, like, I don't know what your history with Persona is, but, like, Persona 5 is dropping this week, and, like, that's a great game that apparently runs very well on Steam Deck, right? So, like, that's a game where, like, if you haven't gotten to that one yet, I would highly recommend checking that out. But let me see, yeah, John said, because we asked, like, what kind of games are you into, so we can kind of give more specific recommendations, and he said, I've always been an RPG guy, but nowadays I play every game there is except horror games. Same here. I've played every game in the top 20 PS5 at least, top 10 open world. My priority when the Steam Deck arrives is to download EmuDeck and then get Wind Waker going. So, I mean, with that in mind, I would say if there are any bigger games like that, like Persona, that you haven't gotten around to, that's a great fit for Steam Deck because they're easy to like chip away at, and obviously if you do have the dock, like you can even get the TV experience, and that's a game that ran in 30 FPS already, so like no big deal, right? You could probably have a pretty on par experience.
It'll run at 60. It'll run at 60,
and apparently it runs at a really, really comfortable 45, I've read as well, which some people think is like the better way to go because it's a good compromise. You don't really need this game to run at 60. It's not that kind of game. But
yeah,
I think
obviously 45 is not going to work on a TV, but it would on handheld,
right,
with the scalable stuff. Yeah.
So I think with that being said, it sounds like you're more playing AAA stuff than indies. Is my perception based on you saying that you're mostly into RPGs and you've played a lot of the top 10 kind of stuff. So, like, with that in mind, there's a couple indies I've played this year on Steam Deck that I think are right at home. Cult of the Lamb is a great one. I think that's probably my favorite indie game this year so far, and it runs great on Steam Deck, like right out the box. So that's a great opportunity. Rollerdrome was another one. Oh, that was the other game I picked up, Steve. I grabbed Ollie Ollie World. That was on sale.
Okay, you haven't finished Rollerdrome yet. You need to finish that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish that too. I'm gonna finish that too. But yeah, I think those are good solutions, and I think also just like any like if there's any like legacy like type indie games that you've wanted to try that you haven't gotten around to, like this is a great place to play them. Like I've played stuff like Party Hard here, which was good. That's like a favorite of mine. Like Hotline Miami, I tried out for the first time and it felt right at home. I think a lot of that type of experience, like either like, the top down or like the, side scroller, that kind of stuff, is like right at home on this display. So like, I mean, games like Shovel Knight or Super Meat Boy or, even stuff like Stardew Valley, like if any of those games are games that you haven't gotten your mitts on already, I would certainly recommend checking them out on Steam Deck. Great place to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I agreed. I mean, if you are looking at into like more of a wide variety, some of the stuff that I've really enjoyed, Inscription. I know this is on PlayStation now, but it was exclusive to PC for a very long time. It plays really, really well. Check out the Hitman games as well. They're really fun, and you can pick up the first one super cheap on Steam. And it's always on sale somewhere. To go to that like istthereanydeal.com website that someone wrote in about a couple of weeks ago, and you'll find something. Stacklands is up there. It's probably one of my favorite games that we've played this year. So, and that needs a mouse, so runs really great with the trackpad, or you can use the touchscreen to move things around, which is really good. And my recommendation to you now, because you are not restricted just to the Steam store, and I know you're not getting your Steam Deck until Christmas, is go to the Epic Game Store website and just start claiming all the free games every single week, and just go back every week. There's some new games coming out today. I think this week's games are Fallout 3 and Evoland. So pick both of those up. They're free. They just go into your library, and then even if you don't want them, you don't have to download them. They're there forever. You can always download them or not. I've picked up so many games like that. I'm playing Prey at the moment through the Epic Game Store, and I'm gonna do a video on how you can install them.
Awesome. Yeah, and then I think beyond that, I mean, you already said you're interested in emulators. Like, I think generally speaking, anything from like the PS2, GameCube, Xbox era and back runs really, really well natively and without any tweaking. So anything like that is another great candidate if you're just like looking for stuff to fill out your library.
Yeah, and I mean, EmuDeck got a massive release this week as well. EmuDeck 2 released. Got a huge update with a new GUI interface. So installing it now is like a totally graphical interface. You can adjust all the saves in there, adjust all the settings in there. You can choose to like add bezels and like tweak the graphics, add like scan lines.
Added some new emulators, which is really cool.
Yeah, so there's like Vita support in there now.
Let's fucking go. Vita means life. You can't kill the fucking PlayStation Vita. It always comes back.
If you like the old Scum games like Monkey Island, there's the Scum VM support for the original Doom. They've added cloud saves in, so it'll sync all of your saves up to their servers if you want to, which is really, really cool.
Love that. Love that functionality. Are you kidding me? That would have made it so like when you had to send in your Steam Deck,
I wouldn't have lost my saves. Yeah, it would have been great.
Come on, that's brilliant.
So it's really, really nice. And they've like improved performance on some of the other emulators, revamped the controller configuration. So even if you've got EmuDeck, it's well worth downloading the update. So just click on the EmuDeck updater on the desktop, and you'll be able to download it.
I was gonna ask, how's that work? Does it just do the update for me, or do I have to like get rid of the original version and reinstall?
No, it'll do the update for you. So if you just you should have the EmuDeck updater on your desktop. If not, download EmuDeck again and just reinstall it, and it should take you through the process. Russ at Retro Game Core did a really great video. I'll link it down in the description. It's essentially the de facto guide now for EmuDeck. He worked with the EmuDeck team and got this prepped and ready to go for the EmuDeck 2.0 launch.
I'll tell you what,
really,
Steve,
really great video. Walks you through everything.
If I've learned anything from new age thinkers, it's that sometimes you need to manifest the things that you want to happen. I want somebody from the EmuDeck team on this podcast next year. Just to thank them. Just to thank them for their work. You know? Just to be like, hey, I just want you guys to know you're doing God's work. Okay? Not a religious man, but I believe in the EmuDeck.
I mean, I believe in like the power of free open source software. I think it's phenomenal. It's one of the biggest things that I think has been a monumental achievement with Valve and the Steam Deck is SteamOS and utilizing open source software to build it. It
I
has
really,
like taken the reliance off of Windows and has enabled people to like hack around and build things like EmuDeck or build things like the Decky plugin loader and just extend and do whatever they want.
I really can't wait for them to put out the PC launcher for the SteamOS because I really feel like it could be a total game changer. Like,
I'm probably like I would run it if I was running a PC. I think I would give it a go. I mean, you don't have to buy a Windows license, which can cost up to like 100 and something quid.
yeah, the problem is that like there's a lot of like software that just isn't compatible with Linux, and if they can what's the word I'm looking for? Emulate the or replicate, I guess I should say, like what they were able to do with that software layer to make Windows games run on Linux natively. Like if they could do that with, like
You can download a piece of software called Bottles. And
does that work with like the
create
Adobe
like a
Creative
wine.
Suite and things like that?
I have no idea if it works with stuff like that, but you can get a bunch of things to work. Someone came into the Discord and wanted assistance with getting a mod manager working, which is just a standard Windows application. You can run that through Wine, either on Bottles or Lutris, and just install it. It'll run it exactly the same way as you can run any Windows application.
Very nice. Well, good to know.
I think as more and more things enter the cloud, it becomes less and less of a necessity to run Windows.
Yeah.
Like Adobe's just bought like another creative program. I can't remember
Was
the name of it.
Miro? I think
No, Figma.
Figma. That's the
Figma,
other one.
which is entirely browser based. So
Yeah.
you can just install Chrome or Chromium or whatever or Edge, whatever browser you want on your Steam Deck, and you can use Figma in your browser. Like Microsoft 365, you can use the whole Office suite if you want to in your browser, or you can use Google Docs.
Yeah.
There's so little you need.
It's like high intensity
core software anymore.
creative programs, though. I think like running like
Yeah, I don't think
editing.
you could run like video editing and things on this, but you could quite easily stream from it, as I demonstrated in our doc review. Opening up OBS, it worked fine. I was able to plug in my capture card for my camera, no problem. Worked absolutely.
I think we're probably not far off from that stuff working at some point too. Like when the SteamOS is readily available and people are hacking it and.
Yeah, because like at the moment, SteamOS 3 is only available on the Steam Deck. So obviously the emphasis is going to be on supporting games.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, so our next question comes from Andy Rads, who wrote in and said, Santa tells me my Steam Deck will be here by Christmas. I have a question as to game configuration. If I am playing game X and I adjust the settings to my liking, and then I go to play game Z, does the Steam Deck remember the configuration for each game? Do I save the settings for each game? If they are different for handheld and docked mode, does it know and load the correct configuration? So, couple questions.
So there's two configurations, right? Isn't there?
Right.
So like you have the in-game configuration, but then you also have the stuff that's in like that quick access performance menu.
Correct.
And they're very different.
Yeah, and in terms of like it remembering, it does remember settings for game to game. Like in terms of like if you optimize the settings, like you shouldn't have to touch them again.
Yeah, it will save it. It's like I think on a console, for example, it's like if you went into say The Last of Us and said I want subtitles on this game, it's not going to remember that you want subtitles on every game. It's just going to remember it for that game.
Correct. But the other part of it switching between them, it doesn't remember that as of currently. That was one of the things we talked about in the deck review is like with I brought up Cult of the Lamb earlier, right? Cult of the Lamb's base settings on the Steam Deck run really well, and it's like optimized for the Steam Deck, and like you don't need to touch anything. But to get it working in docked mode, I did need to change the settings because it was defaulting to all the Steam Deck settings, and I imagine the next time I boot it up, I might have to play with it again to set it back to the normal default Steam Deck settings. So yeah, that doesn't work great. But
it just needs the ability to swap out a config file. Like it should be feasible, but it's difficult because every game saves the configurations differently. They might like freak out if an external application modifies the configuration file while the game's loaded. So there is a lot of things they have to figure out there. But I would say if you pick a sensible default, say for example, you wanted the game to run at 720p and you don't mind that it's 720p docked or 720p handheld, then that's a sensible default. It's 16 by 9, so you have black bars top and bottom on handheld mode. But a lot of games only work in 16 by 9 format anyway. Like Days Gone, for example, is one of them. Far Cry 6 also only worked in 16 by 9 formats, didn't support the 16 by 10 format that the Steam Deck screen is. So you can do stuff like that. And so the other side of the coin is those performance settings. So when you open up that performance menu, there's a toggle. You have like a system-wide setting, so you can say I want all of my games to be capped at 30 FPS, and I want to set my total power draw to be this. But you can override them. You can have a per game configuration file, which will then be saved and remembered. And that is where you can set things like I want the frame rate on this game to be 60, or I want this to be 40, or I want this power draw to be this, or I want to fix the graphics card, or I want to fix the GPU clock speed at 1600 to eke out like full performance out of it. You can do things like that. And I think it's like broken at the moment, but there's like a halfway implementation where you get two configs, one for docked mode and one for handheld, and it does sort of switch between the two. So I think they're in progress of working on it, at least on the preview build of SteamOS. So hopefully by Christmas, by the time that you end up getting your Steam Deck, things will have totally changed. But for now, there's probably going to be 5 to 10 minutes of tweaking for every single game that you boot up into for the first time, I would say. You're going to have to go into the settings. You're going to have to pick a sensible resolution. You're going to have to pick sensible performance settings or graphical settings. You're going to have to choose if you want to have subtitles on or not. All of that stuff's going to have to be done per game.
I would say that it will take longer depending on what kind of game it is. Like I think, I brought up again, to use the two examples I used in our video, something like Cult of the Lamb, I think you could probably make a maybe under 5 minutes worth of adjustments, and you'll be like, cool, this is running at a stable frame rate and a fine resolution. Something like Jedi Fallen Order, I was playing with the settings for like 20 minutes before I hit where I wanted it to be. But now I'm locked in, and I came up with it's a loadout that works both on both versions well, so I probably won't touch those again.
Yeah, there's. I also want to call out another site from the Steam Deck community, SteamDeckHQ.com. They do a really great service essentially to the community. They have a game settings page, and it's for the games that they've played. So you can go through and you can search by title of the games, and it's like community. Like contributed game settings. They'll say what you need to set in SteamOS. They'll say if you need to change the Proton version. They'll say what game settings you need, and it will help you eke out the most from every game.
That's awesome.
They give each game like a star rating as well, which is really cool.
They're doing God's work over there. I appreciate that. All right, so we got another question here. This one comes from one of our Patreon producers, Asobi, who wrote it and said, what is your favorite bread at Subway for your sandwich?
Oh,
if it has to be Steam Deck related, then please add when ordering a sandwich while playing Steam Deck. Okay.
I'm always like in the queue with my Steam Deck in my hand at Subway, so this is very much a Steam Deck question.
First of all, how dare you bring this bit over to the show? Okay, it's for all the Steam Deck podcast listeners that don't listen to Nintendo Noise. Steve and our community is trying to bring that noise, that sandwich noise, over here to this show. Unacceptable. And second of all, Asobi, while we're giving out lumps at Subway is fucking vile. No one should eat at Subway ever. I go to Wawa, where they make good sandwiches.
No one else has that.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Anywhere else in the world.
Move to Philadelphia, where God pays attention. I don't know what to tell you, okay? I'm sorry.
But the bread I would order would depend on the sandwich. So I would get like hearty Italian or like herb and cheese or honey oat. I'm not fussy when it comes to bread. I'll have anything. But their bread can be a little bit, I don't know, sticky inside. If you like, you know what I mean when I say like sticky
Yeah,
bread?
I
It's like
do.
undercooked.
I'm
It's
not going to answer
horrible.
this question because A, I won't dignify it with a response, and B, I haven't had a Subway sandwich since 2014, and it was the worst thing I ever ate. I had been on a field trip for my college. I had been walking around our state's capital all day, about to get on a 3-hour bus ride, exhausted, starving, and I had that sandwich, and I was like, I would rather be hungry. This is vile.
Okay. Yeah. I've always wanted one of those big subways though that they only do in America. You know, the huge ones, like the Subway like mega sub.
The
And
elite.
they like take all the sandwiches and like they put them all together. and
No,
it
I
looks
couldn't.
huge.
I've not seen that before.
Yeah, they're really cool. What I will say is, Sobe, tune in next week when I'm in charge of Nintendo Noise and Pizza Way, and it's probably going to be rebranded to Sandwich Sound, and you'll have a really great time.
Why are you trying to alienate our audience? We finally
I'm
we're,
not alienating
we
the
finally
audience.
we're
They
finally
love
bringing
it.
in we're finally bringing in new blood, and they're like, "Oh, Nintendo show, click 45 minutes of fucking sandwich discussion." I'm not letting it
Hey,
happen
if
here.
there's a
We're
new
moving on.
Pokemon, If there's a new Pokemon trailer with sandwiches, then we will talk about it.
You're a terrorist. You're an absolute terrorist, and everyone in the community is just enabling you. And every day, I come closer to my final form of being Lewis Black. But anyway, we're going to talk, before we get out of here, we're going to talk a little bit about your Steam controller impressions. Because you're an insane person, and you got a Steam controller. So here, I want to ask you this, Steve, if you're comfortable answering this question. How much did you pay for this?
This was £45, boxed with a dongle.
That sucks.
Pretty good price.
Hey, yeah, but like you could have got it for $5 like a few years ago.
Yeah, you should.
If only we had known.
They are a rarity these days, and there's like a whole Reddit subreddit just related to this controller. I posted in it. I said over 100 upvotes. I was like, I just got my first Steam controller. Tell me what to do with this thing, and I got so many good tips. So I'm gonna put a video together. I'm gonna talk about the tips. There's so much cool stuff you can do with this.
I swear to God, if you make me decide I want to buy one of these when I almost bought one for $5 as a joke, I'm gonna be really upset.
I really like it so far. It's not perfect for every game. I can't see myself playing everything with this, but I've played stuff like Age of Empires on my sofa. The fact that I can boot my Steam Deck up with it by just pressing the button like any other console is amazing. Amazing. I hope they are able to bring support to other controllers to do that.
Can you gut the Steam Deck controller and take that functionality out of it and put it in something that I want to use?
I mean, you can just have the button. You need the dongle. And finding a controller with a dongle for a decent price, I would tell you, is very, very difficult because a lot of people use those dongles. They're called Watchman dongles, and they use the same dongle with the Steam, with the Index, with Steam VR. So people took those dongles. It was the only other way you could get one was to buy a controller, and they would take that dongle, and so then they could have more sensors for full body tracking. So you'll find a lot of controllers on the market with no dongle.
Does any dongle work?
No, any dongle will work if it's Bluetooth, but only the Watchman dongle, because it uses a different protocol, will enable you to turn on your Steam Deck with it. You need a Steam Deck dongle.
But any Steam Deck
controller
dongle will work, you're saying?
Any Steam controller dongle will work, but
Sorry,
good luck
that's
finding an official Steam controller dongle. You're not going to find one for cheap.
Because I was looking at this the other day when you mentioned you wanted one, and I saw people just selling just dongles.
Yeah. You got to go careful because some dongles are just Bluetooth dongles that are compatible with this, but they will not work with the Steam controller like protocol, which is like a over RF, which will enable you to turn.
I'm about to call my friend that like bought a couple of these and be like, "You got one? You got how many? You got how many of these? You got? Can I get one?"
It's worth trying. Like I gotta say, like being able to use and the stuff that this does in desktop mode that I wish the Steam Deck did. Like the second trackpad, the one on the left, acts as a scroll wheel. You can scroll up and down on it. So when you're on a browser, you just like swipe on it, and it'll scroll up and down the window. Which the second trackpad on the Steam Deck does absolutely nothing by default. And And being it, I've tried Prey with this. You definitely get more finite control with it. You really have to be, I think, if you're going to play first person shooters, the kind of person who is willing to persist and learn gyro and persist with that trackpad. Otherwise, this is a really great solution if you want to play those games that require a mouse. But I'm really enjoying it so far. Very weird shape. It's like an inverted controller, versus the like Xbox standard Xbox shape. But I like it. No regrets on my purchase so far. I actually traded in an old PlayStation Classic for this, so I was happy with that. That PlayStation Classic was a load of crap.
How?
So.
How did you trade it in? On what platform did you buy this? Where it's like somebody was
I went to a physical store called CEX in the UK, and they had one.
Weird.
Yeah.
Whoa. Wait, what? Oh, okay. This is bids. I'm trolling eBay now. I found $32. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good, but it's 4 days open. So
I don't know that you would like it.
No, I think it sucks.
Tried it before.
I think it's a bad controller.
Why do you think it's a bad controller? What about it don't you like?
I found it really, really, really cumbersome to use, and it might just be because of the types of games I was trying to play with it. But like, I really hated the trackpad experience, and I think only having one stick on it and having to use a trackpad in games that are not made for mouse and keyboard was like ridiculous. Like, it was just so like, it's like, oh, like, I don't know. It felt to me like using a controller, regardless of what kind of controller it is, to me feels like riding a bike, right? Where like, sure, a BMX is different than a mountain bike, right? Like, one has gears and one doesn't, or you might have one that back pedals to brake or whatever, right? Like, there's little idiosyncrasies and things, but generally speaking, if you know how to ride a bike, you know how to ride a bike, right? And for the love of God, I tried using this thing for several hours over the course of like multiple play sessions in like different types of games to like get impressions on it with a friend who had picked them up. And I was like, I feel like this is barely usable in any kind of game. And like, when it comes to the whole like mouse and keyboard stuff, it's like, I do not understand why you would want to play a game that should be played with mouse and keyboard on a controller. I really just can't, where it's like Age of Empires, it's like, just get a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard and use a mouse and keyboard.
I don't want to. I really don't want to. I don't want to. I don't have a Surface. I want to put it on, and I don't need to, because there's so many good community configurations that I've used on the handheld mode that it just works.
And I know you like it
and translate well to this thing. And I actually think if I keep trying it, I think I'm going to enjoy it a lot more. But I see it as like another weapon in your arsenal, right? Like, sometimes you want to play with an Xbox controller. Sometimes you want to play with a mouse and keyboard. Sometimes you want to play on the actual Steam Deck. And sometimes I'm going to want to play with this. Just like sometimes people want to play with a flight stick or with a steering wheel.
I respect
it's just another input option.
I didn't have a single experience to me when I used it that sold me on the vision of what it is and how it was going to revolutionize the way you can. Like, I was just like, I just don't think this is it, man. I'll tell you what though, I'd be very interested in them doing a new one. If they were like, we're doing a new Steam controller 2023 edition and it's learned from the tech involved in the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
I would fuck with. I would be open to it. But right now, it's like, I really feel like the only reason I would buy it would be so I could turn my Steam Deck on across the room.
Which is a very nice thing to be able to do. But
it's cool.
It's preposterous, really. I mean, I mainly bought this because I wanted to see a comparison video. I wanted to see what it was all about, what it was like. I'm interested to talk about it. I mean, and there's things about it I really dislike. I don't like the fact that it uses double A's, even though an Xbox One controller does. But I wish there was like a rechargeable battery in there that I could just plug in.
You can't get one that fits?
I mean, I can just put rechargeable batteries in. The back plate pops off, and then the batteries are in the actual.
Oh my god! I forgot about that. They're like in the things. That's so weird.
Yeah, Yeah, it's very, very weird. But
They probably
it's
needed
a
more space for all the
fairly decent
trackpad
solution.
technology, right? Like, there's no.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Had to get
Yeah.
creative.
But so far, I'm having a good time with it. I'm interested if any listeners have got any tips for me on to get the most out of the Steam controller, then please leave a comment or drop us a message in Discord because I want to be a Steam controller expert.
I bet you that there's somebody who listens to this show that is like a big Steam controller person who has just been like, finally someone to check Pete's shitty opinions about the Steam Deck or the Steam controller.
Yeah, to be honest, like I don't get why you hate it so much because it really feels like the trackpads are very similar. They're a little, I would say, rougher. They're not as refined. Like the actual haptics don't feel as refined.
That's a part of it.
The click is like very like thuddy.
They're also
But there's a very big difference between how the haptics feel in desktop mode, where I think it's just using like basic, like this is a mouse, versus in the gaming mode. I think they've refined it through software that it feels so much
I did
more
use them at
similar.
launch, so there's a chance that the experience, that an optimized experience, would be better than what I experienced. But I think the trackpads on the Steam Deck work really well. And if you remember when they announced it, that was one of the things I was skeptical about because of my experience with the Steam controller. And I think it's night and day. And I think part of it is that the technology is improved, but I also think that like it's the size of them and the spacing and not having it be like this weird, like, giant circle in the middle of the controller that you're supposed to use as a trackpad, but also as, like, a stick. And it just doesn't work. Like, and, like, for a game where you, like, need to have two sticks and, like, swing a camera or something, it's, like, it's...
A lot of people like it. A lot of people, even now, use the trackpad on Steam Deck because they've just added flick stick support in, and I remember seeing a lot of people really, really happy that they added that in because it was something that the Steam controller did, and they brought it back where you use the gyro to look around and then you like flick on the trackpad to like turn.
And like
people like it.
And again, if you like that, that's cool. Like my opinion is not to say that your opinion is wrong. That's not I'm not that type of person. If it works for you, that's great. That to me feels exhausting in the same way that like Chewy and it's like, oh, you gotta use gyro controls in Splatoon 3, and you're like, I gotta use gyro controls to aim and shooters. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking do that. And maybe I just
love
old.
Gyro controls.
Maybe I'm just old, right? Maybe this is just like a me thing. Fine. I could totally accept that. But
have you tried like gyro controls in like a modern
dude
game?
Don't you remember when I told you the experience I had where they were on by accident? And it's just like I and maybe this is like
I think you need to tweak them. Like you need to make them less sensitive so it is literally micro corrections that you're making with them.
But I have the same problem every time I try to play with gyro when it controls the camera, and it's that like I have ADHD, so I'm jittery. Like I'm
set it when you're only aiming, so that you can do a mode shift when you hold down the left trigger and you're aiming. That's when it activates gyro. That's the only time I ever have gyro on.
I'll try it for you, Steve. But I tried doing it in Splatoon. I'm like, I'm going to be a gyro guy. I'm going to learn how to use gyro for Splatoon 3. And I literally, like, by the end of the tutorial, I was like, all right, that's enough
I don't
of
like
that.
the implementation on that because you can't, it's not gyro. It
just makes everything like, what a great experience. Like, I can't.
That could be a sensitivity issue. But yeah, I mean, it's not for everyone. But I like the fact that there's options there. We spoke about options for gamers over on Flip Screen Games podcast this week. I like the options there. I really hope they do a follow-up to this. I kind of feel like the Steam Deck is their follow-up to this, and they kind of see that as their follow-up because...
Yeah, but like, it would be, to your point, it would be really sick to have like an ability to have an evolution of the Steam Deck experience where it is like more... Like, not even just the Steam Deck, but an evolution of like big picture mode. Right, which was their whole like, here's how you can use Steam like a console, right, and use it on a TV.
But that is what the UI that we've got on Steam Deck is going to become. It's
right.
Gamepad UI.
No,
that's
of course,
going to become
of course.
mode.
My point being though, I want them to elevate that with a new controller that's built from the ground up with this in mind, not oh, it works with everything. It's like, no, make it intimately connected to the Steam Deck. Make it intimately connected to. You know, if they ever end up making another like Steam Machine style box like you've talked about, like it would be great to have a proprietary controller that could take full advantage of some of those things, you know, and like have the, you know, the ... button like on the controller, and like, you know, and like have some of those like shortcuts that we have built into the Steam Deck, like just have have inputs for it, you know, like
it would be nice to
keyboard
have
button,
absolutely everything,
you know?
everything that's on the Steam Deck. I'd love to have on here, because there's only 2 back paddles on this. There's not 4 like there is on the Steam Deck. There's obviously only 1 stick on this thing, not 2,
which is ridiculous.
There's no proper D-pad on it.
Like, what is this, a 3DS? There's 1 stick? Come on, guys.
I mean, I'm fine with it. Honestly, I've had no issue. I've been playing through Prey, and
you're playing through Prey on that thing?
Yeah, I want to like give this a serious go for the video.
I respect it, man.
To try all genre of game.
I respect it.
And
look,
I played some Prey, and I also then went and played some Half-Life 2, and it's quite clear that Valve put a lot of work into the configuration for Half-Life 2, because you don't have to take your fingers off of the trackpads ever.
How would you like to play one of our 3 games with this custom controller outlet that we made? Yeah, I mean, you know what, man? Like, more power to you. Like, that sounds ridiculous, but I respect it. It just, I gotta say, being like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna beat a whole game with this. It feels very much to me like with those people who are like, I beat Dark Souls with a fucking Wii balance board or a Guitar Hero controller. It's like, yeah, you could do that, but why?
Cool. Like, you've got so much more, honestly, you've got so much more granular control with the trackpads. And, like, you know that because you've played games with the trackpads on your Steam Deck. Like, I imagine you played some, is it Planet Zoo you're playing through?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, like, you can't play that with a controller. I mean, you can, but it's a much better.
No, but it's way better to just play with a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway, was like, fuck this. I'm just going to use a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, and that is fair. But yeah, there'll be a video going up probably in the next couple of weeks over on the YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed, go check out youtube.com/flipscreengames if you're interested in hearing more about the Steam Deck, that Steam controller.
If you're interested in hearing more about the Steam Deck, that is what we do on this show. So
yeah, then you should
tune back in.
This podcast.
We're here for you. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Thank you guys, everybody who wrote into the question block. Asobi, I got my eyes on you, okay? All right, you watch it. So if you guys want to get some more stuff from us, you want to check out our sister shows, you want to go show your support on Patreon, you want to write in for next week's show when Mac's going to be here, hit us up over on flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to all the places you can get involved. Wherever you choose to come and hang out with us, we thank you for spending the time with us. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. For the crew, oh, wait a minute, I programmed the outro. There we go. Okay. So, that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. Oh, he'll see you next week. I won't be here. I'll see you in 2 weeks, everybody. Stay real, okay? Love you.